You guys know what time it is. It's time to talk about something that's very complicated and will no doubt get some people upset regardless of which stance I take. Let's do it. This news just dropped as of the last hour and a half as of the time of this recording. So I saw it and I was really interested in it, and I figured we should just tackle it head on and address it. So the video I was going to publish today is being pushed off till tomorrow. So you get 2 videos. Congratulations, everybody wins. Basically what happened is a Republican senator from Missouri, a guy by the name of Josh Hawley, said that he was going to introduce federal legislation called the Protecting Children from Abusive Games Act sometime in the next week or 2. And basically what this bill would do is it would ban loot boxes in games that are targeting children specifically, and it would also ban game companies and developers from putting loot boxes in games where kids are able to play, but more specifically it would prevent kids from getting access to those loot boxes. Now I tried to sit down and actually read through the bill because I was like, he doesn't define any terms when he's talking about this on his website, so might as well read through the full bill. Hasn't been released to the public yet, at least as far as I can find, again, as of the time of this recording. Depending on when you're watching it, he might have already released it, in which case you can read through it. I recommend that you do that. Because again, he doesn't define any terms, and that's mainly what this video is going to be about. We're going to quickly address whether or not this is a good idea, considering the fact that he doesn't address any of his terms, so this could take a lot of different forms. The first thing that I think is obviously worth stressing is that this bill is primarily targeted to protecting children from predatory practices and pricing models, which I absolutely agree with. However, the assumption and the thing that's starting to be put out by a lot of gaming journals and websites, at least as of right now, is that this is going to ban loot boxes in a lot of major games that come from EA, that come from Ubisoft, and the like. And that is not the case as far as we can tell from what has currently been released about the bill. Basically what the bill would do, as I said, is it would ban companies from putting in predatory monetization practices such as loot boxes and microtransactions in general into games that are specifically designed and targeted towards children. In larger games that are not specifically targeting children, they would still be able to be put into those games if adults are playing them. The children just wouldn't be able to engage with them. And again, it's important to stress that children is defined as under 18 in US law. So anybody under 18 years of age would not be able to access loot boxes or anything like this in these larger games. But this is where specificity is required because none of these terms are defined. So why this becomes an issue is, first of all, how do you define a game as being specifically targeted towards children? Is a game like Candy Crush specifically targeting children? Because he actually calls them out specifically, saying that they are a quote-unquote notorious example of these predatory practices, wherein there's packages where you can even buy bundles up to $150 in order to get all sorts of things that make the game easier to play, that give you virtual currency, extra tries on levels, all sorts of things like that. So the question is, would a game like Candy Crush be determined to be targeted specifically towards children? And if it is, okay, how are we determining that? What is determining whether or not a game is targeted towards kids? Is it flashy graphics? Is it the fact that it has a simple gameplay loop? Is it that it's occasionally advertised in a cartoony way? These are terms that need to be defined because there's a lot of games that look like that are not targeted towards kids whatsoever and potentially could be hit with these same limitations. And I know what you're thinking possibly, which is, who cares? Loot boxes in general should be gone. Okay, but my point is, this is microtransactions in general, loot boxes, according to some analyst predictions and estimates, are worth $50 billion a year. That's insane. And if you think these companies are just going to roll over and take it, they're not going to. They're going to appeal this all the way up to the Supreme Court if they have to. And what that means is that if you don't have strict definitions in place where you say this is what determines a game that is targeted towards children, it's going to fall by the wayside. The law is going to get basically laughed out of being taken seriously, and everything's going to collapse around it, and it won't actually apply to anything. So if you want this law to go into effect, you should support clear definitions, because if there aren't clear definitions, it's either not going to pass or it won't hold up in court once it has passed and the appeals start coming in. And again, there might be a clear definition in the bill. He just hasn't released it yet. My expectation, though, is I don't know how you define a game that's targeted towards children. I mean, I think it's one of those things. It's like the court decision here in the States. We had a Supreme Court case where it was talking about pornography and how you define pornography. Like, what is pornography? What is art that happens to have naked characters in it? And the way it was defined is basically, you know it when you see it. Like, there's no way that you can just put it into writing what pornography is, but you know it when you see it. This is kind of the same thing when a predatory game is targeted towards children. You know it when you see it. And of course, there's the sort of gray areas such as Candy Crush, where obviously it appeals to kids and kids play it a lot, I'm sure. But I don't know how you determine whether or not that specifically falls into the category of targeted towards children. Because again, if we're judging it off of a poll of the age range of players playing the game, a lot of kids are playing these games on their parents' phones, or like all of us did before we turned 18, we just didn't put our actual birth date into the account information tab. We put like June 9th, 1969. We had a little chuckle, and then we were able to get into anything and play whatever game we wanted. So these terms need to be defined. Furthermore, Senator Hawley's office has said that this bill would also go into effect and prevent people under the age of 18 from engaging with a loot box monetization model until they turned 18 in a larger game that was targeted towards adults. So for instance, with a game like Battlefront 2 or with any of the Madden or FIFA games, those are targeted mostly towards adults, and often it's reflected in the game's rating. Those games would have to do an age check where it would ask you for your date of birth, and then it would verify whether or not you could be offered up these monetization models. Difference is, and the problem with this is that once again, kids lie about their age all the time when they're playing these games. Unless you're doing it with some sort of social security number or driver's license test, I don't see how you can properly enforce this effectively. Because again, if a game is rated M and it's like Call of Duty or Battlefield 5, like kids are already lying about their age to even get the game because it's rated M. So what's the point in putting this gate in place? Sure, I guess 12-year-olds who couldn't get the game to begin with aren't going to be able to engage with the loot boxes or any of the microtransactions, but they weren't playing the game to begin with if they were being truthful about their age and adhering to the already set standards and policies of the ESRB and the like. So again, we need to define these terms, and even once we've defined them, I don't see how this could be enforced in a particularly potent or useful and effectual way. And once again, let me stress, I agree with the premise that Senator Hawley is putting out there, and that is that it is wrong to have predatory practices that take advantage of addictive and compulsive behavior in children, and even could encourage it as they grow up and grow older, especially during a formative time, which childhood is. To encourage compulsive and addictive behavior is a terrible idea, and to do it just for quick profits is immoral. It's borderline evil. I disagree with it wholeheartedly, and I would like to find a solution to it. I'm not entirely sure that this bill as it stands is the solution to that problem. And this is kind of where I stand on this broader issue, which is if this bill were to fix the problem outright, I would be like, you know what? The government getting involved in my hobby, I'm not excited about that. I don't like that. I can't think of a single time when the government has gotten involved in an artistic industry and the industry has improved. But if this is the price I need to pay to protect children, I guess I'm willing to pay that price. The core contention, though, is that I don't think that this bill would be able to do it, because once again, these terms aren't defined, and even once they are defined in set ways, there's clear workarounds, and a company like EA wouldn't be stopped from having these predatory practices in the game anyways. So if you're looking at this bill thinking, great, we'll make it so it's illegal to have loot boxes in the game, that's not what it is at all. The loot boxes would still be in there. The only way that I guess you could look at this in a positive light for adult gamers who don't like microtransactions and loot boxes is that this is the first step. If this bill passed, then there would be legal precedent, which in the English common law system is the core of everything. There would be precedent set in place so that future laws could come along and potentially ban loot boxes and the like later on. And so my key takeaways after digging into this a little bit more is that I like the outset. I like the premise that we're going with, and I agree with the premise. But this bill needs to be rock solid before it's brought before the Senate and the House and eventually to the president's desk, because if it has even a modicum of weakness within the bill, you better believe companies like EA and their proxies and all of their lobbying groups are going to go after it hardcore. And so it needs to be sturdy and solid. And if there aren't clear definitions outlined within the bill that are reasonable and could hold up to scrutiny, it's just not going to pass. It won't work even if it were to pass. And at that point, they're just not going to bother passing it. But let me know what you guys think of this. These topics are always kind of tough because, again, we all agree at the outset, the general premise of what's going on, but we disagree on some of the solutions. And we might disagree on some of our definitions, which leads to all sorts of problems once we actually start dealing with the intricacies of the topic itself. So I am interested to hear what you think. Leave those comments down below. Follow me on Twitter. Like the video if you enjoyed it. Subscribe for more. I've got a couple more videos coming to you this week, and I also have a Sekiro Shadows Died Twice critique in the works, which will be going live for patrons, hopefully Monday. You can also get access to it early by clicking the join button right below this video. You get exclusive badges, you get exclusive emojis to use in chat, things like that. It's pretty cool. But that's all for me. Thank you for watching. I love you all. Peace out.